Hello and welcome to the Glamptuary Podcast, where we talk about the experiential outdoor hospitality industry, and I am your host, Bobby Marsden. Have you ever dreamed of living abroad? How about opening a business in a foreign country? And what if that business was an outdoor hospitality resort, but you had no prior experience working in outdoor hospitality? Well, our guests on episode 6 did all of the above, and it resulted in one of the most beautiful eco resorts in Belize, and it's called Jade Jungle Resort. Super excited to have Lance and Chrissy Walker on the show. They're going to walk us through their inspiring journey and what it was like to go from the US to Belize. They're going to provide a very real account of what it's like to pull off such a bold move while launching a new business. They also provide some wonderful advice and reveal must-haves for anyone looking to create a successful offering and run a successful business in the experiential outdoor hospitality space. So prepare to be inspired, and I hope you enjoy episode 6 on season 4 of the Glamptuary Podcast. Chrissy and Lance, so great to have you on the Glamptuary Podcast.
Yeah, we're excited to be here.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
So what's the weather like in Belize today?
Low 80s is a high 60s is a low. It's just beautiful this time of year.
Sunny, beautiful. Yep.
Sounds perfect. Someplace I'd like to be. I'm excited to talk with you guys for a variety of reasons. And in season 4, we're focusing on the business side of outdoor hospitality. And you two are in a unique situation where you left the United States and chose to go to a foreign country, Belize in this instance, and open up your operation. So I'm definitely excited to learn more about what that whole situation was like. But you're 2 years into this. You get approaching 2 years, 300 acres, off-grid resort. If you could sum up in 3 words what that has been like for you over the last almost 2 years, what are those 3 words that you would choose?
Oh, 3 words. I would say wild, exciting, and I don't know. Actually, that's hard.
I would say, I'd probably take 2 and I'd just say eye-opening. Because I think that, a lot of the reasons why we chose to come down here and make the change for our own family, it's been interesting to see just the further and further we get away from our life in the United States, how much we realize that there's a whole wide world out here with people that live all kinds of different ways and all kinds of different cultures. And we grew up in one culture with one specific way of doing things, but we don't necessarily have to do that. We can change and do things a little differently.
I think that's a great answer because it really kind of sums up why people travel also. And you guys are in the business of inviting people in and asking them to travel to you and experience what you've designed. And I think, Chrissy, the way you kind of summed up those 2 words, and Lance, how you followed up with the third, it's really kind of a definition of entrepreneurship. So the name of your operation is Jade Jungle. And if you could describe that to someone as if you were trying to entice them to come and visit you, how would you describe the structures that you have, the experiences that you're offering, and the ethos of what Jade Jungle is?
Yeah, so we call it Jade Jungle Resort. And really, we have 300 acres. We're off-grid. We have traditional thatch roof cabanas. And all of our building, Chrissy can talk more about the building. She's the contractor and has done an amazing job updating this place since we purchased it. But really, we're leaning heavily into the history that's here. There's a Maya plazuela that's on site. There was a family that lived here for 300 years and then disappeared 1,500 years ago. And we know a lot about them because of the archaeological work that's been done here. Lots of papers published and 5 years worth of digs and consolidation. And there's just so much history in the valley that we're in. We're right next to Aktun Tunichil Maknal, or the ATM cave, which was rated the #1 sacred cave in the world by National Geographic. And the surrounding valley is just, you can't go about 500 meters in any direction without finding a Maya home site. Probably 500 homes in this valley, and then other larger sites. And so in our food, in some of the activities that we do, some of the wellness offerings that we have planned. We're really leaning into the history of what's here. And so the ethos of the brand of Jade, I mean, Jade was sacred to the Maya people and was, held by royalty typically, often buried in prominent burials that have been found. And so that's why we chose Jade as a nod to the history of this place. And also because it's a mineral and our parent company is called Mineral Resorts. And we'll maybe get into that more later. But the mission of Mineral Resorts is to offer elemental experiences, which are these very unique experiences tied to culture, adventure, health and wellness, and nature that pull people out of their day-to-day, this normal space that we all get in, and allow them to almost view their lives from a third-party perspective and make sure that they're living the life they want to live and pursuing the life that they really want in the end. And so, yeah, I mean, I'd say that's the ethos. Yeah. What would you add to that?
Our resort is very unique. I think people who are looking for a typical vacation they're going to be disappointed here because it is so much more than that. It is an experience where you can kind of step out of your regular day-to-day and reconnect with nature, where we have primal jungle here, which I had never experienced before we checked out this property. And you really can feel a difference when you're in the middle of these old growth hardwoods and this very evolved ecosystem that's 500 years old. The air is pure and you can feel the goodness in the ground under your feet. So to be able to sleep under a thatch roof unit and be in the middle of nowhere, it feels very intimate. And that's what our guests say again and again. The atmosphere here is very intimate.
I noticed when I was looking around the site and some of the experiences that you can have, you actually offer the chance for someone to light fires that power or heat the water and things, which I think is so cool. It's immersing people in culture. You have the Maya cooking classes. Like, you guys have really done a nice job, I think, of trying to develop experiences that immerse people in the culture and the area that they're learning in, which I think is so important. So speaking of area, you're in the United States and you discovered in some way, shape, or form that you wanted to do this. How did you go about the search of trying to find the right space? Because it really seems like the space is so important.
We were actually very, very lucky because our business partners had traveled Belize for many years and had found this property 7 years before we even met them, and had fallen in love with it and decided they wanted to buy it. And so when we met with them and decided we wanted to check it out, 2 weeks later, we were here at this property. And we were, before we came, I think we were a little disappointed because you hear Belize and you immediately think beach. But we thought we'll give it a shot, keep an open mind. And we arrived here, and that, the intimacy, the reconnection to nature, the different feel in the air, those are all things we experienced the first time that we came here. And we could just tell this property had something really, really magical to it. And so we were lucky in that way. It kind of came to us, really.
So was your process then partnering with people that could help bring this kind of to life, and then looking for that destination or that location that was going to work? Like, how did you guys start the process? So I'm imagining you had a previous life. I'd love to know what that was, if you can kind of explain that. And then what was the transition like when you said, you know what, we don't want to do this anymore, I want to do outdoor hospitality? How do we get this started?
Rewind to, I guess, 2018. Chrissy is a general contractor and a designer. We've both been entrepreneurs our whole careers, started several different companies. At the time, I was running a signage and graphics company, and we would do these home renovation, like fix and flips on the side, where Chrissy would run the whole thing and then, call me in for random brawn that she needed on the project. But we would sit down at night and we instead of watching Netflix, we would, pour over floor plans and be like, all right, where are we going to move this wall? And what are we going to do with these things? And so it was fun for us. And we did 2 projects that year, one of which we sold, and then the other one we kept and rented on Airbnb. And the second one really kind of did us in. I mean, we finished it literally Christmas morning for some guests that were checking in that afternoon. After opening presents with our kids that morning, we rushed over and kind of finished everything up. And
we've always been a little crazy, if you can tell.
Living on the edge. But so that evening we had a conversation. It was like, we were planning on having another child, which is our fourth. And we knew Chrissy has really, really hard pregnancy. She has what's called hyperemesis. And so she'll throw up 20 times a day and lose 10 or 15 pounds instead of gaining weight. And so it becomes a thing where I'm a caretaker now instead of a co-parent, and I'm a single parent. And then at the time I had my business, which was still very demanding. But we wanted to move forward and have another child. And so that night we were like, no more renovation projects in 2019. We're not going to do it. It's got to be the year of the baby. And so 3 days later, I woke up and Chrissy told me she was pregnant, and it was
I found out I was pregnant that
excitement and dread at the same time. And then that afternoon, our home burned down, and it was just this crazy day, like the craziest day ever.
Yeah.
Like so many emotions, because we lived in a duplex. We were renting one side on Airbnb and then lived in the other side. The insurance was saying, oh, that actually you don't have short-term rental insurance, so we're not going to cover the loss. And so we sat in that, like, staring down the barrel of losing the largest asset that we had for about a week. And by a miracle, they decided to cover it. But we had to work through that. I mean, the pregnancy, rebuilding that home, even though we said we wouldn't do any renovations that year. And finally kind of things started to settle down right around the time COVID
and then hit. COVID hit.
And so it was kind of the 1-2 punch where I like could not recover emotionally. And I was so burned out from running my company and trying to keep our family going that I was just like, I need something else. I need something different. And so
I was like managing the renovation, and then I would run to the bathroom to throw up. It's like, it was a really hard time. And then COVID came and kind of wrecked his business. And we just decided, why are we doing this? This is not a way to live. Like, we are not enjoying this. We're not feeling fulfilled or happy. We're not chasing our passions. We need something that can bring true joy to our lives.
Yeah. And so we kind of did the ikigai thing. If you guys are familiar with that, it's a Japanese term.
No, what is it?
What you're good at, what the world needs, what you can get paid for, and what you enjoy.
And it's the overlap.
The overlap of those four things. In the middle is ikigai. And we sat down and we're like, what is this for us? I don't even know if we sat down. It was just like many conversations over a long period of time. But it's like, well, we're really good at construction, renovation, home design, space design.
We love hosting people from around the world. That is such a treat for our family, to meet all those people and to be able to provide a space for them that they really enjoy during their vacation.
Yeah. We're good at real estate development. The things that we'd done that had made us money and had been successful were mostly related to real estate and our hosting on Airbnb. We were super hosts for like 8 years on Airbnb. So, and that had gone really well, even when my businesses weren't going well or Chrissy's weren't. And so we looked at that and we're like, okay, we really are good at that. And we like it. And then the health and wellness thing was another part of it that was big for us. We had some pretty significant things in our lives that pointed towards, hey, lifestyle really does affect the quality of your life, your health span, your lifespan. And because of different, bad gene hands that Chrissy and I both have, and a situation with our son where he started having seizures, and we were able to help him get over that without really hardcore intervention from a traditional medical standpoint, but just focusing on nutrition and lifestyle. We became very passionate about that. And so we cooked up this plan to build a health and wellness resort in or around Utah and the Intermountain West where we lived. And we sold our Airbnb homes. We were going to move and build another home and just kind of take a year to focus on building the home, get the kids involved in it, make it a fun thing. And during that year, kind of round out our plan of what a health and wellness retreat would look like, and start raising money to go and do it, because we didn't have the money to do it ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Literally the first conversation I had with a previous business partner, he told us, hey, you need to talk to Darren and Nicole Hill, who are now our partners on this project. And that's when that story that Chrissy shared happened, where we met with them, we came down here, and then 8 months later we moved down. So that's more of the backstory. Hopefully that wasn't too long-winded or wordy.
No, it was great. I mean, and I applaud you guys for working through that and working together, which it sounds like you really do a great job of supporting one another, and it shows. And gosh, Chrissy, that's so much to have to deal with. And so I applaud you going through it 4 times. And
I don't know how I did it.
She went for more.
Oh, but our children are such blessings to us.
Yeah. Well, and now they get to experience everything that you guys are building as far as a new lifestyle, and I think that we know what we know, and it's based on what we learn and how we're taught as a child. And so, I think a lot of people are taught one thing about work hard and go to school and get a job and work for a company and stuff, and they just think that's how life is supposed to go. And so I applaud you both for really doing a gut check of, it doesn't have to be like this. We could craft our life in however we want to.
Yeah.
And so it sounds very fortuitous that you were able to meet your business partners and they led you to Belize, and you did all of this in 8 months. What was that like to look at going, not only just moving to another foreign country, but then trying to open a business in that foreign country? What was that like?
I think the one word that would sum up the first year really is ambiguity. Like we had to deal with massive amounts of ambiguity because we had sold our home and we had planned to immediately start building another home. We had moved in with family, and so now we're like living with family, not sure, are we moving forward to build our home? Are we moving to Belize? So it started with that, and then the sellers of this property said, no, we won't sell. And so after being interested in a sale, and so then we put a beach property down here under contract, and the same day that we put it under contract, these sellers came back and said, okay, we will sell. And so then we're like, okay, well, I guess we're going to do both.
We'll do beach and jungle, which is still our vision, by the way. We still plan to open a beach resort here.
But that felt, like a lot. And so anyway, the beach contract didn't work out, which was great. But that added a lot of ambiguity because we moved down here planning to move to the beach property. And we were set to close in a few days, and then found out that the seller had not been honest with us and couldn't actually perform on the contract. And so then we had no place to live, and we were in a foreign country with 18 suitcases and 4 kids. And
oh man.
I'll mention homeschooling for the first time ever, right? So we're navigating a new country, cultural differences, which were, a lot more difficult than I anticipated. I think because it's English speaking, you imagine there aren't going to be as many cultural differences, but that was significant. Homeschooling for the first time, not being sure where we were going to live, and kind of moving around a lot.
Well, you guys have such a Zen feel to you. I'm impressed that through all of those things that you described, you're able to keep your cool and just move through it with grace. And I think that's, a good lesson for everybody, regardless of whatever business they're going to do, is try and move forward with grace and realize that there is a solution if you just take a moment and breathe.
I think we leveled up a lot in those first few months, because we had to handle all of this level of ambiguity and be good leaders for our company, and also be, a safe place for our kids. So it was definitely a lot of emotional energy in that time.
Yeah. And gaining emotional maturity, I think as you go through those challenges and experiences, you just naturally gain that. So you get down, this obviously had been a resort that had been open and running, but maybe not to the standard or the way that you wanted it to be. So what was one of the first things or some of the first things that you had to tackle to get it to where it is today?
Oh, we had a lot. We really weren't able to see the whole property before we closed because the sellers were a little funny about that. And so there was quite a bit that we didn't actually even really know about until after we were closed or near closing. And two of them that had to happen immediately were the roof on our team housing, 6 bedrooms and 6 bathroom house, that the roof was leaking all over the place. So we had to immediately replace that roof.
And it was concrete, and it would, with no insulation. So it would soak up the sun all day and then just radiate heat into the rooms at night. So these poor people that were sleeping in there were just,
it was bad.
They were, and it wasn't sealed either. So there's like,
yeah. So we had to replace the roof. We had to go in and replace we realized that all of the beams that were holding up the second floor of this team housing were completely termite damaged to the point where you could just stick a screwdriver straight into them. So we had to replace those. And then our solar system, our power system was in bad shape.
It had been limping along much longer than it should have. I mean, they were like 12-year-old lead acid batteries or something with 50-plus-year-old panels. And so, so we completely redid the solar infrastructure and put in new batteries. Those were the first things we did, but that was just scratching the surface. There was a lot of
that was within like the first, 3 weeks.
That sounds like a lot. Well, did you have, when you got down there, obviously it sounds like you were assessing and kind of dealing with what needed to be dealt with immediately, but then there was some kind of a plan, I'm assuming, that kind of started to form about, okay, here's the things we want to do. Here's the things we want to have. What was that timeline like, and how did you methodically move through it?
I don't know that it was methodical or that there was a real
Chrissy is like a force of nature. Even well-studied people who've been around her a long time cannot predict the weather all the time. And but like incredibly powerful. And so she'll have these moments of just pure genius, and then just the amazing ability that she has to rally people to a cause and make things happen, just move forward. So
once the team housing was done and I felt like our team had a good place to live, because we are in the middle of nowhere and we have about 20 team members that stay here on property, then we started on our cabanas. So then we have 10 thatch roof cabanas that we started renovating, and that was, I think, also just kind of unfolded as it went.
Yeah, I mean, I think the perfect example of that is that Chrissy had plans for our Jungle View units, which are kind of one of our more premium couples unit. And two things happened. She had this flash of genius of like, because they were accessed from behind, and you could walk behind the units on the ground. But they created a situation where you didn't get a lot of privacy from the other units, because you're walking right past each unit to get to the ones that are further on. And so she came up with this idea of, let's create a boardwalk that goes out from the hill that's raised up above the ground. And then we'll put walls between each of the units, and they'll be accessed by a swing bridge that comes back towards each unit. And then it will create a courtyard behind each unit that we can put some hammocks in, and maybe eventually a little splash pool for people. So
private pool, yeah.
That was, I mean, I think that came one of the days we went to the beach. And that's what I'm saying. These flashes of genius just come.
I'm lucky that I have a team that's willing to roll with me, right?
Yeah. And so that came on quickly. It was more expensive than we thought it would be, but I think it was the right move. And then during the renovation, she had a plan of what we were going to do inside the units. And as the demo was going on inside the unit, a wall that was supposed to come down partway came down all the way. And these are all, it's all concrete construction here. And so it ended up being not a block wall, but a solid concrete wall that we thought was a block wall. And so Chrissy walked in, and there were no more walls. And so
The wall just fell down. We were trying to work with it, and it just completely fell down. And I was like, yes, this is the best thing that could ever happen.
So
now
now
I get to
now she had a
the whole
clean
time.
canvas, and I think it turned out a lot better because of that.
Yeah. I mean, if there's anything like Lance is saying, ambiguity, that is exactly, I mean, the entire 2 years we have dealt with such a high amount of ambiguity. You have to be flexible. You have to be willing to pivot because it's hard to get things here. The weather can be really unpredictable. There's just so many different elements that you're working with that you have to be really flexible.
Yeah. Well, you guys are still young. You're very much in the beginning phases of what's probably going to be a long-standing resort, hopefully, and so I imagine you'll kind of continue to move through things like that in a healthy way, and that's, again, it translates into the kind of energy you put into the place and what your guests can experience, which it sounds like is mental health, fortitude, being able to relax and roll with it, which I think we could all do a better job in this world, not get so worked up. In addition to obviously the structures that you're working with, there's the business side as far as like tech infrastructure and kind of how you get people to book there and things like that. And moving into this space, it probably is a little different than what you were dealing with in some respects on Airbnb, because now you have your own booking system. What was that like, and kind of what did you learn in that process of being able to build out that experience now for yourselves and your guests that you were leaning into Airbnb for?
That was a bit of a shock for us when we came here, and it's like, okay, it's going to require a lot more effort to put together our tech stack and our marketing efforts and get the word out, help people see what we have here.
Yeah. And it's a much different stay. People are planning further ahead. It's a much more unique stay than just staying in a home in the city. So yeah, there's a lot of different things going on. But I think kind of the heart of at least any hospitality business that's of any size is a property management system. This is like the booking system that you connect to your website, that people can book in, or that you use to book people when they call or email. So for us right now, that's Cloudbeds. We started with another software, which I think is a good one. I won't mention it, but decided to move to this one for different reasons. They have an open API, which was important to us. And then they connect with some other softwares that we were interested in connecting with. So we just implemented for our revenue generation Take Up AI, which is, I think, a newer software. And I like them because they focus on a lot of different factors. I feel like a lot of the revenue management softwares, and for those that don't know what a revenue management software is, it manages your rates. So it'll change your rates from day to day based on different factors. And a lot of them are very competitor and market focused, and they don't have any internal metrics. So they're just looking at everybody else, right? And a lot of times that's the blind leading the blind, because they're looking at the market and the market doesn't know what's going on, and everybody's pricing to compare to one another. And so this will use historical booking metrics and even inquiries, right? So like, hey, there's a lot of people looking to book for this specific date. We're brand new with them, so I can't give a strong recommendation for that one. But I'm excited to be using it.
Yeah, dynamic pricing, I think, is definitely something that you have to use, and it's oftentimes not used.
And I think it's important to consider these together, right? Because when you look at your property management system, they may integrate with 1 or 10 revenue management systems. And so you've got to look at, okay, I like everything for this property management system, but do they integrate with the revenue management system that I want? Or do they at least have a few different options for me? So I think that's important. We obviously use the OTAs like Airbnb, Booking.com, Expedia. We're going to add a couple more niche, like more nature and outdoor experience focused OTAs. You probably know a couple you could refer us to, so I don't have to look so hard.
Be happy to help.
Yeah. And then we use WeTravel for some of our group retreats. So WeTravel allows you to create booking pages for groups. We have Talzi, Talzy is a software that is an automated chat bot, essentially. But it uses AI to learn more of the questions that people are asking and help you build a bigger kind of reservoir of responses. And so, if you train it really well, it can run as the first line of answering all of the questions that people ask repeatedly. So I'm really excited about that. We're in the process of creating the first training modules for that AI, and then we'll launch it next month. And then part of the reason that we wanted an open API was for creating a centralized dashboard so that we could view all the different metrics for our business. It's hard when there's metrics in all kinds of different places, right? You want to know how many people are coming to your website, and what are your sales for the month? What are your sales for today? How are you tracking compared to last year? What are your sales for the year? Which of those sales are tied to different sales reps or reservation agents? All these different things that might be spread into different places, different financial metrics. And so I'm partnering with someone that I was introduced to develop a dashboard software. And so it'll pull information in from Cloudbeds and from QuickBooks and from Google Analytics and Facebook, and just give one dashboard that kind of shows me how is my business doing. And so that's called Resortalytics, and it's a brand new software that I'm developing with a friend. So and then for more operation stuff, we use QuickBooks Online, we use Google Suite, and we use ClickUp for task management.
Yeah, ClickUp is what I use to manage all of my teams here at the resort, and it's amazing.
Well, it's good to hear you guys are putting all these things in place, which sounds like a lot. I would imagine the listeners and viewers are going, oh my God, that's so much technology. But the reality is, if you didn't have those things in place, you would be stuck at your computer the whole time. And obviously it's a lifestyle choice, I think, for you guys, as much as it is a business choice to be doing what you're doing. You want to be out also enjoying nature. You didn't want to build this beautiful place so you're stuck in front of a computer. And I think that technology stack is oftentimes something that people don't necessarily think of. They think it's one or two things, or if they're used to an Airbnb, which is shouldering a lot of that stuff, they don't realize that when they want to do direct bookings, there is a complementary set of things they need to put in place that need to work well together to simplify your life. And that also, frees you up to do new resorts. So you mentioned Mineral as your parent company, and Jade is the first. What are the other minerals that are going to open up, and what are they going to mean? Where are they going to be? Like, what's the future look like for you guys?
Oh, it's so exciting.
Yeah, take that
one. We plan to open a beach resort here in Belize. I would say 90% of our guests that come here will also go and spend some time at the beach. And so we would love to offer a, reef and rainforest package where they can come stay in the jungle, they can go stay at the beach. So our beach resort will be called Salt here in Belize. And then we would love to open one somewhere in the Intermountain West, like, maybe Utah, maybe Wyoming, maybe Montana. And yeah, we have a bunch of different minerals
maybe stone for that one.
Stone, copper.
Yeah, copper. Southern Utah, we've got some unique ideas for doing some things in the red rocks in southern Utah. That one would probably be called sand.
We'd love to go to Croatia and maybe do coral or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds very ambitious, and I'm excited to stay in contact with you guys, as you guys progress in Belize, and then consider coming back to the United States, kind of what that would look like of coming back to where you started from. I'm sure that would be a completely different POV you could back her, depending on what's happening, and who knows. In parting, if some of the listeners out here that follow this podcast are maybe just getting started in something like this, maybe sometimes some of the listeners have been doing it 10 years and they're looking to kind of reboot or kickstart or take a new direction. Some people are in another career and they're saying, I don't want to do this anymore. Kind of like you guys had that revelation. I want to do something that's more nature-based. what kinds of things would you say is maybe words of encouragement or words of wisdom that you would advise them to be thinking about as they're considering a career in this, or they're just getting started? What are your thoughts kind of being 2 years into it now?
I think, it's hard to give broad advice for everyone. But for those people who are committed to doing something like this, I would say just start taking the first steps. For us, it was just telling people that we were going to do this. And that turned into an opportunity that turned into what we're doing now. And we could have never seen, like, we're going to go live in the jungle in Belize. That wasn't even on our radar. And so I think a lot of people sit and plan and think and imagine and dream. And then 2 decades later, they're like, I missed my opportunity to go do that.
And they are, I think often too, we can tend to be afraid to talk about our dreams because maybe they seem a little too ambitious or a little too out there, but just being able to say it and put it out there, I think that is the first step, to say, this is what I want, and then start taking little steps to get there.
You hit the nail on the head there, putting it out into the universe. The universe listens. It really does. And it'll give you something back. And it might not exactly be what you envisioned it to be, but it'll be something of an opportunity. And then you can choose to do what you want with it. And it sounds like you guys put it out there, which takes a lot of courage to do. And then the universe heard you and gave you something back. And it wasn't the thing you thought it was going to be, but you still were open enough to receive it. And I think that's awesome. And that's really, I think, what connecting in nature is about. It's about listening and receiving and being open to it. And, I like to quote Bruce Lee, be like water. It's like sometimes you just have to flow with it.
And it's not as scary as you think it's going to be. When we thought about moving here to Belize, has it been a ton of work? Yes. Has it been really difficult? Yes. But it's not as scary as you think. So just being willing to take that leap of faith is really important.
Yep. Well, I appreciate you guys taking the step to come on the Glamptuary Podcast. It's really been a joy learning about your backstory. A lot of surprising elements in it. And I'm excited for you guys. And I'm excited to come down, hopefully, and visit you someday. So until then, thank you very much. Be well. And we'll see you down the trail.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Bobby. We're so excited. Thank you for having us.
I want to thank Lance and Chrissy for sharing their courageous story and also for sharing so many helpful tips for all our entrepreneurs out there. I'm very happy for those two and excited to watch them build a wonderful collection of experiential outdoor hospitality destinations. If you'd like to learn more about Jade Jungle Resort and see what Lance and Chrissy are up to, you can do so on their website, which is www.jadejungleresort.com. And if you'd like to follow us on the Glamptuary Podcast, you can do so on our website, which is www.glamptuary.com. That is www.glamptuary.com. You can also follow along on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, and Pandora Podcasts. Wherever you like to get your podcasts, we just ask that you follow us, and we thank you for doing so. We'll see you down the trail on the next episode, and until then, be well.